Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. I am your host, Professor Jeremy Vilmur. Somewhere in the background is my dog eating a blanket. And joining us now, a man who's hiding a candle, and we're going to find out where, Arn Anderson's favorite enhancement talent, Double B, Bobby Blaze.
Oh, man. Well, I'm going to tell you what. How has it started? February 26, 1995. We're coming to you from the Knoxville Civic Coliseum, man. And I'm telling you how it's going. It's Smoky Mountain. It's Bloody Sunday. Bloody Sunday. And that's the night, 27 years ago on this day, that Bobby Blaze upset the whole world of professional wrestling by beating Jerry the King Lawler, and later that evening beating the Nature Boy Buddy Landell to retain the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Championships. And Knoxville Civic Coliseum is one of my all-time favorite buildings to wrestle in, Jeremy. And I know that's this week's topic, so I want to try to put that in there because I got several messages yesterday congratulating me. And I know it's been a hot minute. That's a long time ago. My man Brock put a little thing up there, how it started, how it's going, and had my original title on there with the picture of me standing there with the blood all over me, the Sunday, Bloody Sunday. And they had a new picture where the title, the replica title they got me with, at an appearance I had here recently, and see how little I've actually aged during that time.
Look practically identical, yeah.
Yeah. I dyed my hair back then real dark. I don't know why.
Bobby, I've got that picture of you covered in blood holding the title belt, right? And
yes.
my grandson, when he saw that a handful of years ago, and a couple times he asked me, "Hey, can I see that picture of your dead friend with his wrestling belt?"
You told me. Well, I'm still alive and kicking. I'm just trying to outlive a few more people, including myself. Man, we got a fun show packed today. We got top 10 venues, and we're going to do probably more than 10. I just mentioned one just now. We're going to have some fun with it too, man.
Yeah.
What's going on your way, Jeremy, man?
Oh, my dog is super rambunctious and extra destructive the last couple days. Has there been much of anything? Not really. Getting ready to launch another podcast. I think I've hit the point where I might be over the NWA. That's pretty much it.
I didn't watch the NWA like I normally do this weekend. Yeah. I did not.
Well, let me tell you one thing.
I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to say I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the last 2 weeks I just I'm not going to watch it for a little while.
Well, so let me just say Camille versus Taryn Terrell might be worth looking at.
Okay.
Might be worth looking at.
I'm not saying I'm going to tune it back in and catch it all up. It's just I've had some other things
going
on, and I'll get back into it, I'm sure. Nothing against the talent there, anything like that. It's just lost a little bit of interest. Had some other stuff coming up.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, I run on like a 4-year thing where I'm real interested in wrestling, and then I'm not, And, we've been at this about 4 years now.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, I'll tell you something exciting. Yesterday, I got to hang out with Shane Douglas and Tommy Rich, man. Got to see two guys I think a lot of. FTC, the Art of Grappling School, had a seminar, and Tommy and Shane put it on. A couple of students come out. Brox and Bubbles and Caleb came out, and a couple others. Had a nice little class. It was a little learning seminar. Told a lot of stories, man. Tommy telling some stories that just brought back a lot of memories, and Shane did too. Bring up a couple here in just a little bit once we get into our podcast, what buildings we're in and stuff. I'll share a story that just kind of goes along. They had no idea we was doing a podcast on, arenas or buildings, but just in their stories, places they had been and stuff, it came up, and I thought, I can tie that into the program tomorrow, guys, But anyway, wanted to mention one other thing. I know what it was. They also had an appearance, and we'll get to this later on too, Jeremy.
Okay.
They had an appearance in town for Time Warp. They had a show in West Virginia they were doing. So they did a seminar there Friday, seminar here yesterday morning, and then they did an appearance at the Time Warp in downtown, or town center in Ashland, and then they had matches later at night. Were involved in some matches back up West Virginia. So that's what it was. That's why.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that's pretty cool. But like I said, I went over and hung out with them and watched them and do their stuff, and it was a nice conversation amongst all of us, and I think the students all took something away from it.
Yeah.
I know I did. Just little things, it's always good to learn, man.
Oh, absolutely. So, like I said, is there something you can share with us that you picked up yesterday?
Just stuff I knew, but it's good to be refreshed on.
Sure.
For an example, Shane he said, "I'm sure Bobby's told you all about false finishes and stuff." And so he laid down on the mat there, and 1, 2, 3. Okay, don't speed the cadence up when you're it's like a song. 1, 2, 3 when the ref's taking a pin, or giving a pin. And one of the things I'd worked this out, Mark Curtis back in the day. 1, 2, and depends where you're in the match at when you're going to kick out. Of course, this is towards the false finish, towards the end, and I had it down to where Curtis would bring his arm down. And I mean, right at that last second before he tapped that mat, I'd get my shoulder up,
Mm-hmm.
What Shane was talking about is, and it makes perfectly good sense to me, people leave this out, is when you're laying there, you just lay there. There's nothing else moving, no foot movements, no indication that you can kick out at all, because now it's towards the end of the match. You're dead. It's a false finish. You two are the people, you two guys working, a ref should be the only one know when you're going to raise that shoulder. And Tommy blended in, and I've told students this for years, if that referee, of course, hopefully the referee's not going to go 1, 2, 3 and fast count trash,
right.
But if it's professional referee, 1, 2, 3, okay. Well, Tommy said this, and Shane agreed, and I've said this. Of course, I agreed yesterday. If you don't fucking kick out, that's your fault. You just got fucking pinned. That might not have been the finish, but guess what? The match is over because that referee has a job to do. Now, I'm not saying that he should have done it if he's got a regular cadence. I'm saying if he fucks it up by speeding it up. But if he's got a regular cadence, 1, 2, 3, okay, and you know that, and you don't kick out, it's not the referee's fault, and it's not your opponent's fault, So you just got beat, and think it was, and if you don't like it, fuck you. And then if you go in the back and complain about it, fuck you again.
Yeah.
So that was Tommy said. But it went down to Shane to say, look, I'm laying here completely still until that hand's coming down, and it's 1, 2, and when I finally know I'm gonna kick out, that's when you move your body, roll your shoulder, whatever. And just little things like that make so much sense that people. One of the things I had written on a board, and they weren't, I'm gonna say 10 minutes into their seminar, and one of them said, "Think, shoot, then work." And I wanted to jump up and say, I put that up there in May on that board, but I didn't. And they continue to talk. And they come back a couple of times about, you got to think it was like real. If you're at a bar, what would you do? How, you got to think it's real, like it's a shoot, and didn't work. And finally, towards the end, one of the students pointed out to the board, that's one of the things I put up there. I said, I wasn't going to interrupt you. I said, I wrote that up there on May so these people start understanding how you got to treat this business, think it's real, think shoot, didn't work, and work it,
Yeah.
Tommy Rich did the Tojo Yamamoto deal to, I think he did it to Brock's, what Tojo did to Jerry Jarrett in the car. Reached out and grabbed his ear, didn't put any pressure, said, now look in the mirror. And he cranked his ear and he looked at the face, and Brock's made a pretty good face too, because Tommy, had a grip on it, and Brock sold it, which he should have. But then Tommy let it go and said, then, see, we can work because I can just guide you around. My hand's just taking you around. You should be selling the ear like you felt it, So little things like that go over, get overlooked so many times, I guess.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say. And that's something I'm good at when I do a class or I'm teaching a class, and Kevin Sullivan gave me this compliment. I could tell him 5 or 6 years ago. He came by while I was doing a 3-day seminar, and he came by. I always make sure you're looking at your opponent. I don't care where you're at, if you're on your hands and knees, on your back. You better know where your opponent is at all times. You know, the eyes, you got to use your eyes, and that helps your ring awareness. And also, you know what the fuck he's doing. If he's some goof or something, you don't be walking around stumbling and stepping on your fingers, or, crawling out of ring when you shouldn't be, or whatever. It could be anything. So I always say, keep your eyes on your opponent. Know where he is at all times. And that's just one of those little things that if you're in a boxing match and you take your eyes off your opponent, you just, they tell you protect yourself at all times.
Yep.
That's the way it should be. So yeah, there was a couple little things I took away from it that I knew, but I liked seeing being re-emphasized, to the students, to the art of grappling students. And there was a couple others from Moose's school, Appalachian Wrestling up in West Virginia. He's a hell of a good guy too. You'll probably get to meet him when you come to town, Jeremy.
Okay.
Real good guy, promoter named Moose. Appalachian Championship Wrestling, I think.
Yeah, for such a small area, just the amount of promotions and viable promotions that you guys have there is just amazing to me.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty good area, actually.
Yeah.
And the thing is, and Tommy brought this up yesterday, and it is going on some. It really is. There's several we've got a, relationship with, the FTC and a couple. If the promoters could get together and say, look, I'm bringing this guy in. I know it's like an NWA type thing, like, look, I've got this guy coming in and you're going to be running a show, would you like to run a co-show together? You do your town, I'll do my town, but we can split the cost of this 1 or 2 top stars they're bringing in,
Yeah.
And maybe even get a 3-day run out of it. So, you want to promote another town together and do that. I think that's going to happen. I really do. I think it's coming back, man. Maybe again, I'm just smoking the old hopium, because trying to keep my pulse on the heartbeat of the fucking independent scene. But Tommy and Shane seem to be thinking that too, man. They really did. They emphasized it a lot. And what they weren't giving false hope to the students. They were just saying, this is how this works. If you all get out here and do this and hustle a few towns. And he goes, another thing is, Tommy said, I like it because, he might bring me back up here again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and he was in, I think he was in last month. It was early in the month because I spoke to him on the phone. Joe called me, which we usually text unless it's something important. But anyway, my phone rang middle afternoon and he said, Bobby. I said, yeah. He goes, here. And it was Tommy Rich on the other end. They was at a show together over in Ohio. And I was like, that's cool,
Yeah.
I appreciate that kind of phone call,
No,
but it's good
cool,
to catch up with them. I had seen Shane. I've seen him once since August, and then I saw Tommy, I guess it's been 2 or 3 years ago, either at an ASW show or at this big event that's coming up next month. I'll see them both again on March the 7th. At Bobby Fulton's big show, and I'll have some more information on that next week because I'll be going over there, and we want to push that a little bit for Bobby, help him out. But he's got a huge show coming up, a fan fest, and then a wrestling match later that evening. He's over 40 superstars coming to that, and we'll talk about that more later on. But anyway, let's get into our top venues. How's that?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. So I don't think we're going to number these or anything. We're just going to kind of, kind of go down a list and discuss them as we go. And, right here, we've got the Cow Palace at the top of the list. Yeah. And of course, that's here in my neck of the woods. It's in San Francisco. It was opened in 1941 with a seating capacity of 16,555. No, 16,550, right? We're short a number there. Yeah. Legendary matches, Ray Stevens versus Pat Patterson. You could probably extend that list out a little bit because they did their big matches there. Roy Shire did his big matches at the Cow Palace. That's where he held them. But when Roy Shire started to fall, Vern Gagne put matches in there as well. There were a number 324 total.
Look at your notes there, Jeremy, if you need to.
Okay.
Just so you know, for some reason that didn't take a while ago. It's on there now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I did add that on there. Okay. That'll make it easier for you.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Yeah. I mean,
start there. Vern Gagne's AWA.
Sorry, guys. I got to kind of read along here.
Right after 1981. There you go.
Yeah. Vern Gagne's AWA then moved into the area and took residence at the Cow Palace, drawing 10,000 gate in 1983. But crowds dwindled after that. From 1985 onwards, Vince moved in and started running shows with Hogan on top. Cause what Vince was doing was going into Vern's old territories with his stars and, running shows. Blah, blah, blah. AWA, WWF, actively battled over the Cow Palace. After Super Clash 2 drew a brutal 2,800 in 1987, the writing was on the wall. 3 months later, WWF TV taping drew 14,700. And the place belonged to Vince. JCP tried their hand at running in 1988 with Sting versus Flair on top, drawing only 4,500 people, which was less than half what a rate. Goddamn. You know, those are considered like classic matches now, Sting versus Flair. And only drew 4,500 people. Savage, let's see here. Half the WWF spot show drew a month later with Savage versus DiBiase. Vince ran it unchallenged all the way until 97 when WCW staged Super Brawl 7, drawing 13,324 with Hogan versus Piper on top. It continues to be used for wrestling to this day, although the WWE haven't been there since 2012. Well, wrestling just kind of got back in there. It was just a handful of years ago where, cause they made a big deal out of it. I can't remember whose promotion it was. But they made a big deal that wrestling has come back to the Cow Palace. And so there had been a little bit of a gap in there for maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. So I had been to a rodeo there, but that's the limit of my exposure to the Cow Palace.
Gotcha.
And you know, that would have been my dad dragging me to a rodeo, which, you know, my dad only went places to get laid, Bobby, so.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, hell, he knew what he wanted, didn't he?
Exactly.
My connection to the Cow Palace is Ron Starr. I'm going to be reading something just a little bit out of one of the Rock Rims books. But Ron used to talk about when he's booked up in Canada, he used to talk about working at the Cow Palace. And I'm just when I've read this book, and it just has a little couple brief little things here. He was on his way to Japan and had some other U.S. title matches at the Cow Palace. And after Northern California for 20 years, then it said Roy Shire Wrestling Promotion was on its last leg when he was coming through there. So that's probably about the time, you know, Vince and them started running it too.
Yeah.
That makes sense according to Ron's career here. But anyway, you know, he always liked it. He said it was overrated as a building, though, you know, because it's just a big rodeo place. That's what
that's what it was.
Said. So, you know, just one of those things. But yeah, that's the Cow Palace, man. I think I'd have loved to work there just from hearing about it and reading about it, you know. I obviously didn't, but yeah, I wish I could have for one of them old promotions, man. That'd been really cool.
Well, it's probably just like that list of venue names where you're like, you know, the Chase. It's a place you would have liked to have been if it had still been something. Yeah. Well,
let's move on to the Omni in Atlanta, Georgia. Hot Atlanta, GA.
Yep.
Opened in 1972. The capacity was 16,378. Legendary match, Tommy Rich versus Buzz Sawyer. That was 10/23/83. Had a total of 291 shows there. And talking to Tommy yesterday, and again, he was just didn't even know. I think I told you off there. He didn't even know I was doing a podcast on arenas or anything, but I was like, yeah. So he was sitting there talking about him and Abby in the Omni and just getting the crap beat out of him, but how he fought from under and showed that fire, and that's why he became the star he did, you know, because he could show that fire and that he could fight from under. talked about him and Buzz Sawyer, of course. He didn't go in great detail of matches. He was telling the students, different little stories. Talked about Mr. Wrestling #2 being there when Jimmy Carter was president.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Tommy was just about 18, 19 years old, I guess, which makes sense because I know my age and his age. And he was talking about Jimmy Carter's mom coming. They had took her to the in the back, and she sat down and had like a 12-minute conversation with like Mr. Wrestling too. But the bodyguards and stuff, the big bodyguards came in and cleared everyone out. CIA, you know what I'm talking about.
Secret Service, yeah.
Secret Service, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, Secret Service. And he just told a little story about that and stuff, and just talking about selling it out, man, and working from the bottom. But that's one thing I remember about the Omni when it opened in '72. I don't know, Jeremy, if this took place in '72. I'm thinking this might have taken place in '74, so someone can fact check me on this. What I remember about it was on the Wide World of Sports, and since it opened in '72, it might have actually happened in '72. I'm just saying. In my mind, it was like I was a little bit older.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Harlem Globetrotters had a guy named Meadowlark Lemon. He was one of the leaders of them.
Yeah.
Each generation has their leader, Goose or whoever it is. Well, this one Meadowlark was, kind of the man in charge, the Meadowlark Curly, those kind of days, Well, and Meadowlark was known for that hook shot. And I think he was going to be up on the 4th level mezzanine type deal, deck or whatever, and he was going to shoot that hook shot. And in my mind, I can't remember if I watched it live or watched it, later on or however it was, and he made that hook shot, from way up. And nowadays you see them super dudes, #1 videos, and these guys are doing these basketball tricks and ping pong tricks and, doing pretty amazing shit you can watch there on YouTube when you go down the wrong rabbit hole.
Oh, absolutely.
But, it was a big deal for the opening that the Atlanta Hawks were going to play there, of course, but Meadowlark was going to shoot that hook shot, and that was, I guess, that was part of the opening, or within a reasonable time of the opening, or maybe the first time World War of Sports even shot something from there, Jeremy. But it was in that time frame, mid '70s there, or 72, 73, 74, somewhere in that time period.
Yeah.
So, and then that match with Tommy Rich and Buzz Sawyer. That was on YouTube for a while, and someone took it down. I don't know if it's back up there again or not. It's a pretty bloody match. That's the one where they get up on the cage, crawling out of the cage, and it's just a big bloodbath. Again, I don't know if it's still up on it or not. Trying to think of. Oh, Omni was also known as the Madison Square Garden of the South. Mm-hmm. So it was named that. Anything else you want to talk about the Omni, man?
You know what I think of when I hear the Omni, when I think of the Omni, I always hear it in Dusty Rhodes' voice, Usually yelling at Ole Anderson, like, Ole,
yeah.
I will see you at the Omni. And
Omni, Friday.
Yep. Because, that was their, I don't know, was that every month, every other month or so where they do a blow-off show there, and, that was their big thing, and usually ended up with Dusty being a tag team partner with somebody who ended up fucking him at the end of the night, and then the Andersons would come in and kick the shit out of him, and then somebody gets stabbed by the audience, it would always kind of win a certain way.
The other good thing about that was, on that Georgia TV, every once in a while, you'd get footage from the Omni. Something happened that past weekend, and so I loved how Gordon Soley used to do that. They'd bring in, we found out last night in Tampa, Florida. They'd say something about maybe Gary or Dory or Terry Funk, or they say something happened, one of the Briscoes, and they put that footage up there the best they could, and they do the same thing with the Omni. Say, last night, Dusty Rhodes fans, we just got this footage, it's a little bit raw, and they'd show something, they'll show that clip, just that teaser, that for next week or next month, Dusty and Ole or whoever, they're going to be in a cage or whatever it is, Mm-hmm. It just, then they come out and do the live promo right there on the TBS spot,
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me. So, yeah, it's good stuff, man. Good stuff.
So for me, it's always going to be in Dusty Rhodes' voice,
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you, Stardust. I hear Daddy. Well, let's move on. You want to announce this next one?
The next one is the Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis. So I think I've only really become aware of St. Louis's history in pro wrestling maybe in the last 5 years. Or, you know, I mean, it's in my mind. I was probably aware of it. It just wasn't top of mind, and I didn't understand what a big thing it was. You know, and Harley Race and all these guys that, you know, come through there and the venues that were there. What's kind of your memory of the Kiel?
You know, very similar. I think, obviously, with the introduction of the internet and getting old footage and seeing, you know, I've heard stories from there before, of course. No recollection of, you know, like, obviously St. Louis was an important part in professional wrestling, especially NWA. Other than magazines seeing something maybe where someone shot a picture from the Kiel Auditorium, you know, or they had a match report in the back of the magazine, the Arena Roundup or whatever, you know. But yeah, other than probably the last, you know, like you, maybe 5 to 10 years, you know, I know just what's happened with the internet, and we're, you know, okay, we got this week's matches, or from X amount of years ago, you know, and then now, of course, with the NWA, did their one of their bigger shows recently out in St. Louis, you know. It's just put it back on a map, so to say. Also, I read Lutez's book, and, you know, he mentioned it quite a bit throughout the book, but that's been 20 years ago, you know, when I read that book.
Yeah.
But, so, yeah, very, very limited. Anyway, I'm going to read this real quickly because you brought it up earlier. The venue was also in stark contrast to the one permanent arena in St. Louis, the Chase Hotel. While the Chase presented wrestling in a ballroom lit by chandeliers, accommodated patrons who dressed in high fashion with only the very best food and beverage. The Kiel sold hot dogs to... I started to say racist.
Well, you may be right in some counts, yeah, you know.
What is that?
Raucous crowds.
Raucous fans dressed like, well, wrestling fans. Going to the Kiel meant one thing. You're going to a wrestling event. It wasn't going to be just any random card you want to see, though, you know. So, just kind of, I looked at that, I'm like, wait a minute, don't stutter, Bobby, don't stutter.
Not a place to pick up your stammer right there. So when they say dress like wrestling fans, what do they mean? Like old T-shirts with holes in it, covered in chewing tobacco, a trucker's hat, and then the men are dressed even worse, or what do you think they meant?
I think you nailed it there. No, I think you know, I honestly the people I see at wrestling matches now in Japan is quite different, of course. Like I mentioned before, people come dressed up all the time there. Yeah. But no, you know, mostly a pair of blue jeans, T-shirt, overalls, or a flannel shirt. You know, hoodie, ball cap. You know, foot attire could be anything: cowboy boots to flip flops to you know, ball shoes or whatever. I've seen girls come very, very dressed up, you know, and I've seen them come just, you know, in baggy clothes, you know. So yeah, it's just whatever you feel comfortable in, you know. So I had a story about flip flops there.
Well, I was gonna bring up the Chase. I think for most of us, you know, like even guys our age, we didn't grow up when you got dressed to fly on a plane or when you got dressed to go to dinner. And especially here in Central California, that wasn't really a thing. But the generation before us in the slightly larger cities and the coming suburbs, your parents changed clothes before dinner. You know, they put on something nice, and the kids were expected to go wash up and change their shirt. When you went anywhere, you probably wore a suit. Like if you were going to fly, that was an event. That was something you dressed up for. And if you were going to dinner at the Chase to watch wrestling, you put on a tuxedo. And that's probably one of those things that's kind of weird to think about. You're sitting at a table with a white dining room, with a white tablecloth, under a chandelier, next to a wrestling ring.
Yeah.
in St. Louis.
Well, that's the thing about it, though, Jeremy. You can look back at old pictures, and there'll be old pictures of NFL games, and the men will have their hats on and suits. Women are dressed up. The same thing of Major League Baseball. You don't see a lot of just people sitting around in jeans and T-shirts. Most people are dressed up. Like you said, the men have their hats on, suit and ties, and all that. But yeah, I thought that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, I had an idea for a restaurant at one point. It was only going to be open like maybe 2 nights a week, just for dinner, right? And it was going to have a burlesque act, a musical act, and then a 3-course meal. And it was only open, and then you get the fuck out. And I was going to call the place Jacket Required. And if you
jacket required,
yeah, and if you showed up in less than a suit and women in a dress, you booted the fuck out. You're not getting in.
Well, I thought about opening a restaurant one time, and I was going to call it Bot's Castle after my grandfather, Daddy Bot. Now, you can figure out where the Bot came from. So it was going to be called Bot's Castle. But, of course, it was going to have no jacket required. And one of my gimmicks was going to be, this is a shoot now, if you ask, is the tea fresh, you got free tea. Because we'd be making fucking fresh Southern tea every day at Bot's Castle. I thought about that. I don't know if I ever get to do it or not, but maybe open my food truck and call it Bot's Castle.
There you go.
Yeah, no jacket required. In fact, you better show up in, some
overalls or something.
Especially if you're a girl. Well, no, I was going to say a girl. I was going back to my flip-flop story. This girl was telling me she's about 25 now, and this happened about a year after she got out of high school. In the summer, she got out of high school. And she doesn't live in this area. I think she's a South Carolina girl. Anyway, man, she said that she went over to return a dress to one of her friends, right? And she took it into the house, and she didn't know anyone was going to be there. And she's standing by the refrigerator. And here comes around the corner the girl's dad. Well, they just looked at each other, and they kissed. And, this is a guy that's like her dad's age, Mm-hmm. And she'd tell me her first time she'd be with older men. That's why she liked older men. Anyway, she called him Mr. G. Anyway, they kiss. And they startled each other. And she said, I swear, I think he's in there watching porn is what I think he was doing. But he didn't know I was in the house. I didn't know he was in the house. She said, so he kissed me again. And then he picked me up. And it was a flip-flop went this way, a flip-flop went that way. And he set me on the counter and pulled my skirt back and gave me a quick lick. And next thing I know, I said, it's on, motherfucker. Let's go. It's real. And she said, we fucked. And she said, it's pretty much over before it started. But she said, it was pretty hot. She goes, I still think about it sometimes. Frizzed out, man. Let's head up to Detroit and check it out up there.
Yeah.
Well, we know to go to Cobo Arena up there in Detroit, Michigan. Opened in 1960. The capacity was 16,000 people. The legendary match, Bobo Bazil versus the Sheik, 7/31/65. I imagine they had a lot of them. Number of shows, 377. I would say Bobo and the Sheik was on about 375 of them.
Oh, I imagine. Yeah.
So...
well, the place is the place is synonymous with the Sheik. That was his spot. Yeah. And so, anywhere the Sheik went, there was, not cheese graters necessarily, but there was gallons of blood, and there was crazy, crazy stuff. And my biggest memory of the Cobo, though, is the stupid monster truck sumo match where the Giant fell off the roof, turning Hulk Hogan into a murderer. And then the Giant shows up for his next match, and it's never mentioned again.
Yeah, I never did get that. I don't know what the date was on that, but it seemed like I was home. I don't know if I was with the company still, but it seemed like I was home sitting in this room right here watching that on TV when that took place. I know I wasn't there. But I can't remember if I was still working with the company or not, if it's in 99, I was still there.
Yeah.
So. But also, Detroit had the Joe Louis Arena that was used there. And I'm going to give an honorable mention out here to the Palace at Auburn Hills in Detroit, Michigan. I got to do, now, the thing about that is the Palace is not downtown in Detroit like the other two were. The Palace is out in Auburn Hills. It takes you about 20, 30 minutes to get out there to it. Real big, nice arena, but I got to go out there and do 2 pay-per-views there, World War III in 97 and World War III in 98. And I'm not really sure, but we're in 2022. We might be fucking getting ready to go to World War III now. I don't know. Just throwing that out there. But I think it's a work, and I hope it is. But, yeah, I just want to put the Palace out there at Auburn Hills as an honorable mention, a personal favorite, because I got to do some pay-per-views, got a pretty good check for it, and got some good exposure for it. And it's a good feeling when someone says, the first pay-per-view I bought, you was on it, you know, someone from my hometown. Or I'd be out to the video store, and people would say, you know, you're on a video. You got a video if you want it out there at Blockbuster or out there at the gallery or at the food, the movie connection and stuff like that. You know, I'm like, yeah, I know. You know, I mean, I'd be modest about it. You know what I'm saying? Because most of the time, as a younger person, you know, teenager or something, say, man, I saw you at the pay-per-view. Like, okay.
Well, you know, bringing that up a little while back. There's a game I bought right before my ex-wife and I split up, and it was an online game. I hadn't played it forever, but I'd spent like $50 on it, and I was bored one Sunday after we played. It was a Sunday after we had recorded, and I decided I was going to play that game, so I had about an hour I wanted to kill and not really do much of anything. So it's online with other people, and I strike up a conversation with people as I'm doing some other shit, and I said, well, I'm going to get going because I got to go edit a show, or... Oh, you know what it was? It was me and Sparks were going to record that night. I had to go so we could record. That's what it was. And so I said something, hey, I got a podcast. I got to record something. He goes, oh, what's your podcast? And I said, oh, it's with retired wrestler Bobby Blaze. And somebody pipes in automatically and goes, hey, ask him what it was like to be in a 60-man battle royal. He goes, that was my first pay-per-view. My grandma let me get that back in.
Right on, man.
So I was like,
dig it.
Yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, and I forgot to bring it up after that, but I just thought that was kind of funny, and so you bringing up that, you know, you'll be at the grocery store and get that, the Piggly Wiggly, get that kind of thing is, that's pretty cool, you know?
Well, I tell you what it's like, man. The first year, you know, I was number 54 and went out there, and I was supposed to stay about, 7 minutes or so, give me a little push. I was in the first ring and do a little deal here and there. You know, you don't want to be out there bumping around or anything, but I had Chris Benoit throw me out, someone I trusted. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but, he took care of me, professionals. And I know. Yeah. Just telling it like it is, man.
I know.
So, anyway, the next thing I tell you real quickly is it's cold. You do this in the week of the week of Thanksgiving. Okay, is when you tape this thing. That Sunday before Thanksgiving is when it broadcasts, not taped. But anyway, we're standing in the back, and someone in front of me starts. They raise the doors open. They got those big. You can bring semi trucks into those arenas.
Yeah.
Buses and whatever you want. I mean, they're fucking huge. And someone opened the gate back there. And one of the wrestlers, and I don't know who it was to this day, started bitching and moaning about how cold it was. And we're all there in our gimmicks and stuff. Well, right behind me was Booker T. And, man, Booker T went on a rant about, you think you're cold, motherfucker. How about all them policemen out there and them police women and them people parking cars? And, and he said, just started ripping them, and these guys were trying to fix something, obviously. It was a big kind of a dump truck looking thing. So I don't know if they, moving dirt or moving road things to block roads off or whatever. They needed to come back in there for whatever reason. And, man, he just lit this guy up. And, again, I'm not trying to protect him with identity because I can't remember who it was. But anyway, I just turned back around and looked at Booker because he was, like, talking, and I was right in front of him. And I just slowly turned around like, God damn, I'm glad I don't have any heat with Harlem Heat,
Yeah.
But I said, brother, he started saying, look all the money you up there making, and we're making money here. And them guys ain't making but $10 an hour over there, He just cut a promo. And I said, man, I appreciate you saying that. I said, because I still know where I come from, too, because he put some things in there, But anyway, that took place, and that was the first year. Now, the next year, the second year, it didn't go as planned. I was number 55, actually. Glacier was supposed to throw me out. Once again, I was in the first ring and was supposed to stay in there about 5 to 7 minutes. Actually, that might have been 7 to 8 minutes. Yeah, I might have got a little more time the second year. But what happened was the first ring was the one, as soon as you come out of the curtains, that was the closest to the curtains. And I'm in there and I'd done something. I think I went to Glacier and gave him a forearm or something. And, hey, come and get me in a couple minutes, and then work around with a couple other people. And I'm standing there against the rope. And the next thing I know, I feel a big hand on the back of my head that takes up about my whole head. Another hand on the back of my tights that takes up about my whole ass. And it says, "Time for you to go, big man." And there's a fucking giant. Paul had picked me up. And by the time he said, my head went from, from below his shoulders, obviously, to up in where I was parallel, where my head was on his shoulders when he said, "Time for you to go, big man." So like a military press. So my body's parallel to the ground now, and he just pushed me right out off the edge, and I landed out on on my feet on a mat like, fuck, he could have killed me, but at least he took care of me, you know what I'm saying? I hit and I turned around, kind of did a bird to him or whatever I did, like bitching, selling, whatever I did. I don't rightly know, but that's what it's like to be in a 60-man battle royal. Try to mind your own business and you still get fucking thrown out unexpectedly. And the goal of any battle royal for me is be the first one out of the motherfucker so you don't get hurt. Well, unless you're the last one, unless you're planning on being the last motherfucker in there or the last 2 or 3 people in there, you'll be all right. Otherwise, get the fuck out of there. And Ricky Morton can fucking, he's one of the toughest ones to beat in a battle royal because he'll be out before anyone else is out, I guarantee it. So, yeah, he smartened me up to that.
Oh, my brother, and I said it right before we recorded, my brother, one of his favorite quotes was a Ricky Morton. We'll start off slow and then taper down from there.
That's right.
And that's it.
Right.
That right there sums it up perfectly, I think. Just be the first one out.
Yep.
Bobby,
I got a
question. I got a question for you, and this is going to be battle royal specific, but
okay.
The way they did the battle royal here that was your big match of the year, and it was dangerous, and most wrestlers didn't want in on it. It was a $10,000 prize if you won. When you're getting thrown out of a ring, what is the safest way to land? Realizing that gravity is gravity, and there's not a safe way to do this.
Yeah.
What is the best way to go?
In a controlled manner, preferably. If you can get one or both feet down solid without twisting an ankle or blowing out a knee, honestly, if you can get 1 or 2 feet down and hit and then hit and roll, roll back up, take as less trauma as you can. Obviously you don't want to land on your head or your neck, your upper back. Just hopefully the way you go out is you can get your center of gravity and swing your feet around enough that you can, get one or both of them down. And as soon as you hit, just push and keep on going, taking a bump more or less on the, not try to take less impact off of when you're hitting like a hit and roll kind of thing, I guess.
Okay.
If that makes sense. More like if you're like parachuting, I guess, when you hit and you duck and roll,
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. If you hit, if you hit and you're facing the ring, you can just roll backwards, If you're hitting away from it, you just roll forward,
Yeah.
Protect yourself. Look at your surroundings. Try not to, I see this all the fucking time, try not to be tossed over the rope and you swing over it and your lower back hits the ring apron on the way out. That hurts like a motherfucker because if it's just one of your legs even, it hits you in the back of the hamstring and hurt like hell.
Oh, yeah.
Or, the whole lower back, and that hurts. So try not to touch that. There's a good way to go over it if you just grab the rope and if someone's working with you and they got you by the back of the tights and just run you across, that you just put your left hand out there and take a big jump. And if you're athletic, which I was fortunate enough to be, I just let go of right when they let go of my tights, I let go of that rope and I could pretty much just land on my feet and then slither or slide down very easy if I wanted to take a floor bump,
Yeah.
But I'd already hit the floor comfortably enough to know I'm not hurt,
Right.
So,
and the reason I was asking that is if you're thrown in the ring, it's still going to be high, but you can still do like a judo fall, where you hit, you slap your whole back of your arms and your hands. That way you got spread it out over as much space as you can. But if you're going over the top rope, you can't do that. I don't care. I don't care.
You can get hurt so easy.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't care how good you are at taking a judo fall. You fall that far, you're not going to be able to absorb it just by slapping the floor, you know.
My main concern was always, you know, and most of the time I was in good hands, that, you know, someone's going to pick you up and give you a good toss, to give you a good chance to balance yourself out to take a bump, you know. So, but I've seen people be careless and throw someone smaller out, you know, and just fuck them off. And I never liked that, you know, kind of take a liberty with someone else or whatever. But it happens. But again, that's why you try to get out.
Yep.
Get to someone and say, "Get me out of here." You know?
That makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here.
Get back on track here, and I want you to do this next one, the Dallas Sportatorium, because that's your territory.
Yeah. Well, this is one I definitely like watching, and that building had been there for a while, and it was originally built by a fencing company in one shape, and it got added to and detracted from, and pieces were put on. Apparently, the ring was over a giant hole in the ground, and there were 2 kinds of rats in the building with no air conditioning. Completely unsanitary, yet still sold hot dogs and soda. It sounded miserable, but I'll tell you what, when you tuned into it on TV, and you heard about the historic Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas, it sounded like the place to be. And some of that stuff, just those matches were great. They were a lot of fun to watch. You know, it's kind of one of those things too, Bobby, for me. Like, I watched a lot of like cheaply produced kids TV as a kid, you know, Star Trek, all this stuff. You grow up, you realize just how bad it looks. But you still like it because you grew up on it. And you go back, you watch old WCCW matches. The quality of the matches were pretty good, but you start looking around outside the ring, and you're just like, God damn, those chairs are all broken. You know, it's the Sportatorium. It just continued to slide down after Fritz closed up.
Yeah.
And then it just fewer and fewer people were going to matches, and it held a bigger audience than, was it like 10,000 people is what it could hold or something. But they got down to the point where they had like 900 showing up, and then indie promoters started just taking ballrooms and things at that point. In 2001, it caught on fire. In 2003, it was completely demolished.
There you go, man. There you go. The old Dallas Sportatorium.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jeremy, I'm going to skip down to the next one here.
Okay.
Just ignite the one you see. I'm going to read a little passage from my book from Rock Rims. If you don't mind, I'm reading a little passage here. This is Bad to the Bone, 25 Years of Riots in Wrestling. It's by Rotten Ron Starr with Rock Rims. And I think you'll like this, Jeremy, where we're heading to next, okay?
Mm-hmm.
She was an old girl long before I had ever gotten inside of her. And the list of other wrestlers, boxers, and celebrities who could claim that same privilege was a mile long. And for years and years, thousands would line up at her doors several times a month with money in their hand, hoping to do the same thing. Sitting at 18th and Grand in the downtown area of Los Angeles, the Olympic Auditorium was a building with lots of history and was world famous for for hosting some of the biggest names and events in professional boxing and pro wrestling history. So I wanted to introduce the Olympic Auditorium by saying that right there, man. I thought that's pretty catchy. What do you think?
That was a nice bit of artistic writing, kind of anthropomorphizing the Olympic. Now, the Olympic has somebody that runs a Twitter account for them. I don't know who it is or what the relation is, but they're really on top of posting stuff about old matches and boxing matches and stuff going on in the LA wrestling scene from back in the day. So that's always cool. And of course, Rock
I like
Rims.
that. They follow me, actually. We put them over.
Mm-hmm.
Let me check. You know what? They're still following. I just checked the other day. I'm almost positive. Olympic Auditorium follows you. Yes, the history of LA through a historic fight arena, 18th and Grand. The Olympic Auditorium story screening at looks like March the 8th and 10th. They got a screening of something. I knew they was working on a movie on that. So there you go.
Okay.
It's a theatrical screening event. The Olympic Auditorium history, story, Tickets available soon. It's taking place March the 8th through 10th at, let me see if I say this right, Jeremy, Lemire, Laemmle, and Gen Pop Present. So whoever that is, someone's presenting the Olympic Auditorium. Lots of special guests. And they do update stuff. They've got El Santo and Black Shadow on the match there right now, what they're showing. But anyway, yeah, big shout out to the Olympic Auditorium. But opened in 1924, the capacity was 15,300. Legendary match, it says right here, Freddie Blassie versus John Tallis, 9/4/1970. 5,833 shows. The Olympic Auditorium venue was the wrestling mecca at the heart of the old LaBelle territory from about the 50s to the 70s, where Blassie was a linchpin. Before that, however, from the 20s to the 40s, John Londos sold the place out almost weekly basis. Ray Steele was a draw there. Also were Bobo Bazile and Ed Strangler Lewis. After Vince McMahon Jr.'s WWF bought the LA promotion in '83, they only ran it 3 times because Vince preferred to run the flashier LA Memorial Sports Arena and then later the Staples Center. But again, that doesn't mean there's not wrestling, there's not punk rock concerts, and a shitload of other stuff that goes on at the old Olympic Auditorium. So, could be wrong on that punk rock. Didn't they have their last punk rock show there a couple years back? 3 or 4, maybe?
Yeah, I think we talked about this one time, but yeah,
I think we did too.
Yeah, it sounds familiar, if not necessarily something I know right off the top of my head. That does sound right.
Yeah. They had roller derby there too. Damn it!
Oh yeah.
Yes, got the roller derby there.
Yeah,
so that's the Olympic Auditorium. Now that's the place I would have liked to have went to either as a fan or as a wrestler. You know what I'm saying? Just to be a part of that history, man. That rich history there.
Yeah.
So.
No, that'd be really cool.
Anyway.
Too bad you weren't just a little bit older and didn't get to do a Pacific tour real quick. Maybe hit there, San Francisco, Oregon, and then maybe Hawaii and Japan or something. That would have been.
Yeah.
That would have been cool.
I know we're going to move right along here. I want to mention something else real quickly. We got I'm going to throw this again to honorable mention. I think we'll finish up with Madison Square Garden if that's okay, Jeremy.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I'm going to come back to that. I wanted to throw out a personal favorite of mine. I've probably mentioned this before. Cabrera County War Memorial Arena in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. I got the wrestle there for WCW, and I tell you what I liked about it, man. It sit down by this river, and it had this old school feeling. You just knew a lot of shit must have taken place at this building. And I hadn't even walked in except for maybe 2 feet at that point. That's just from the outside visual and just walking through the back and looking around going, oh, shit, there's ghosts here, man, in a good way.
Yeah.
There was an old hockey arena, okay? And that's where they shot the movie of Paul Newman called Slapshot.
Oh, yeah.
In 1977. And, man, the history, I talked to a policeman there, a security guard, and he took me around. They had old stuff there, man, and just boxed up. I think they just had a flood, as a matter of fact. But, man, just some of the stuff that was there, it was just very cool to get that feeling that I didn't know the name of the arena. I just know we wrestled in Johnstown. I looked it up, but that was pretty cool. And then we had, according to one report, and we went off here a little bit, Jeremy. We didn't. When I found some of these articles, I stayed away from anything that said Bleacher Report or WWE,
right?
Because they were all over the place with they use this venue, and all that. But I did like this. According to one report, here were some arenas that made it. We had intentionally talking about some of these, but we didn't, and that's fine. ECW Arena in Philadelphia, Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis. We did have that written down. All-State Arena in Rosemont, of course, right outside Chicago. That's Rosemont, Illinois. The Superdome in New Orleans. We definitely had that one written down. We didn't go to great detail about it. We had Mid-South and Superdome written down. We had Arena. We didn't have these. Sorry, Arena Mexico in Mexico City. What is that, Jeremy? Korakuen Hall, Tokyo.
Korakuen Hall. Yeah.
Thank you, Tokyo. And lastly, and this is what we're going to finish up at, is Madison Square Garden, New York Center.
Yeah.
New York City. Center. I was trying to get back on.
Well, so you know,
yes, the Garden.
Yeah, I was going to say that place had been a bunch of different things over time. I mean, it's been added to and rebuilt and this, that, and the other, but it's known as the Garden or MSG. It used to have a closed circuit channel back in the 70s and 80s where people in New York could watch wrestling matches on TV. WWF all the way to the WWE apparently basically owned this venue. But as recently as 2019, NJPW and Ring of Honor had started putting on shows there before the pandemic. So it looked like that hold might have been starting to break a little bit. This is one of those classic venues. You know, there's a lot of big matches happen here. Riots happened here back in the day. Probably some superstar Billy Graham shenanigans, and you know.
Well, I was going to tell you a story. Shane told yesterday, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So Shane, we was talking again. Him and Tommy did a really good little seminar to talk about the history of different things, how they became fans, and this and that. And the franchise said, man, he was watching TV, and one of the first things he remembered seeing was this big blonde monster guy, and he liked cartoons, and this guy looked like right off the page of a cartoon of superstar Billy Graham, you know, because he had the muscles like the cartoon muscles and the blonde hair and the tie-dye and all that, you know, and he was standing behind a fence with the Grand Wizard behind him or with them, and he's cutting a promo about being in Madison Square Garden against Bruno Sammartino, who had many, many, you know, legendary sellouts there through the years. And at the end, I guess, so superstar Billy Graham, and I'm sure it's out there somewhere, took a thing of cabbage and just started grading it back and forth against the cage and was saying, you know, doing his promo, saying, this is going to be your face, Sammartino, you know, when you show up at the Madison Square Garden, this is going to be your face, you know. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And then I was telling you off the air, Tommy Rich talked about, he said he liked where he was at. He didn't want to go anywhere else. He said I kind of liked my home down in Atlanta, you know. And I used to be able to do a pretty good impersonation of Tommy, but I won't. I respect. But he said Mr. Barnett come to him and said, Tommy, how would you like to wrestle in the Madison Square Garden? And he said, well, I'm kind of happy here, Mr. Barnett. He goes, yeah, my boy. No, I'm just kidding. He said, Tommy said, well, I think a young boy like you should get the experience of having to wrestle in Madison Square Garden. And Tommy said, okay, you know, he got offside, of course, but he's just kind of like, he's happy where he's at. And I know Tommy, just, you know, good old country boy up there. And so he went up there and he had to wrestle Johnny Roz. And Johnny Ross, as Tommy said, he said, I guess he was pretty over up there at one point, and he didn't want to put over a little old white country boy, you know.
Yeah.
So, and he goes, but man, that ring was so much bigger than what he was used to. And he said Ross just had him doing like, hitting the ropes, drop down, leapfrogs. He said his word ass out running him across. He said, but he hung with them, you know. But he said that was his Madison Square Garden match that he had, and I thought, man, that's pretty cool to hear these guys talking about, you know, Shane seeing, you know, one of his earlier shows, programs, and honestly, that's probably one of the places. If when I was in Maryland in '69, I don't know if what I was watching was coming from the Baltimore Arena or if it's come from Madison Square Garden, you know, because it's WWF-TV I was watching with my aunt, you know, so I could have been watching the matches from the Garden, you know. I don't really know, but I would imagine I probably was. But then, you know, the thing about that is where we're all at today, I guess. You know, you go from Bob Backlund and Superstar Graham and Sammartino and the guys that wrestled there, but then the Sheik wins the title, man. The Iron Sheik. And what happens from there, Jeremy? The Iron Sheik, man, he wins the title. And if there's no Iron Sheik, there's no who? There's no
Hulk Hogan. That's for damn sure.
That's right. Yeah. And that's the kickoff to WrestleMania 1 and bringing all the celebrities in. And the other thing about that is there's also no Hulk Hogan if there's no Roddy Piper. So that all took place at Madison Square Garden. So, man, that just kind of brings you up to date on some of the arenas And I think we done a pretty good job and had some fun on that, man. We appreciate everyone tuning in every week. We did, like I said, leave off a couple. We just kind of want to do it this way and have some fun with it. And I hope everyone enjoyed the program again this week, man. Anything else, Professor?
Bobby, where can people get your books at?
Oh, yeah. You know what, man? You know what?
Huh.
I got to do something real quick. Yes, my books. You can go to tinyurl.com/blazebook1, and that'll take you to Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boost Will Travel. Also got a second book called I Kicked Out on 2, The Education of a Wrestler. And you can go to tinyurl.com/blazebook2 for that. And Professor, I did not want to forget this. I mentioned it earlier at the top of the hour. The guys that came in yesterday, Tommy and Shane, they had a visit with the Time Warp, man. And once again, let's do a live promotion because, once again, the Time Warp is our this week's sponsor, man.
Yep.
So I'm going to start it. You cut in whatever you want.
Sure
Video
thing.
gamers, sports fans, nostalgia enthusiasts, are you ready for a Time Warp? Time Warp is a brick-and-mortar hobby shop with a huge selection of everything sports, gaming, and collectibles in downtown Ashland and 2 locations in the Ashland Town Center. They got good vintage toys, sport cards, collectibles, tons of wrestling merch. It's the largest selection of memorabilia in the tri-state area. Time Warp has an extensive inventory of vintage and current video games and consoles. It's a 100% must-visit for retro gamers. Time Warp buys your collectibles daily and are open 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They're only closed on Thanksgiving and Christmas. Check out their Facebook page at Time Warp Ashland. Thank you, Earl, for sponsoring this program this week. We hope you liked it.
Mm-hmm. You can also find them on Facebook, and you can buy from them online through Macari, or I'm sure Earl would be happy to accommodate you through an email. So don't forget to check them out on Facebook, kind of get a sense of what they've got coming in. They handle a lot of everything. Bobby, like you're saying, they bring in wrestlers, but they also had Sam Jones from Flash Gordon in there. They've had lots of all sorts of like just pop culture celebrities come through.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really a cool venue, and we appreciate their support a lot here at Bell to Bell Blaze, or Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. I got a dog chewing on my arm while I'm trying to do that.
I hear you.
All right, so we got that. We got your books. I think that's everything.
I think so, man. I know we had fun with it. I know I did. Anyway, how about this, Jeremy?
Mm-hmm.
See you at the matches, wrestling fans.
All right, everybody, for the late Tex Johnson, myself, Professor Jeremy Vilmur, and Arn Anderson's favorite enhancement talent, Double B, Bobby Blaze. Bye-bye, everybody.